Hear that gurgling sound? That's the Trump Department of Justice and its beleaguered lawyers who are drowning under the weight of almost 100 lawsuits filed in the first 35 days. And it's bursting out into the open in court hearings in front of federal judges. Maybe if you decide you're going to conduct your administration through the frequent issuance of illegal and unconstitutional executive orders, maybe you better have the people power ready to go in the Department of Justice. And that's one area that maybe Elon Musk shouldn't be swinging the axe, but it's great for our democracy and for the rule of law. And more importantly, for the lawyers and law firms on the other side of the Department of Justice, because for once in their life, they are outgunning the Department of Justice and not the other way around. I'm Michael Popok, slightly giddy, here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. We always thought there would be an impact on the cost cutting and the hollowing out of federal workers. I mean, every time we have to do a report about another dozen or 2 dozen or 100 or 200 DOJ members who were retaliated against because they used to work in the Biden Justice Department, even though they're career bureaucrats, career prosecutors and staffers, been there forever. Well, what do you think happens? Every time you hear about Elon Musk swinging the axe or Pam Bondi doing it, there's no MAGA replacement for these people right behind it. They just show them the door with their little box of stuff, and there's nobody to replace them. So what does that mean? It is aberrational for there to be 100 lawsuits in the first 35 days. I'm supposed to be talking about whatever the accomplishments are for an administration in the first 100 days. Instead, I'm talking about the first 100 lawsuits in the first 35 days. And behind every lawsuit, there's 5 or 6 Department of Justice personnel that have to handle the case. And they don't have enough staff, apparently. I'll go over it's now 95 and all the preliminary injunctions and all the temporary restraining orders and all the appeals, the various appellate courts, a couple of that have trickled out to the United States Supreme Court. But I'm pulling it all together with this. Listen to this back and forth between a Department of Justice assistant U.S. attorney and Judge Chang in Maryland about the USAID, the attempt to shutter our diplomacy and cut off billions and billions of dollars of federal aid to organizations overseas through American contractors and workers, by the way, and their paychecks, to help on a humanitarian basis people in need and people that are dying around the world. So they got into it over the judge getting fed up with the Department of Justice slow-footing the case. And here's the back and forth that has been reported. Judge, why do we get a declaration, but there's really no documentation of anything there? Mr. Morocco, who runs USAID for now, says every decision was approved by Secretary Marco Rubio. I've got no documentation, a letter, an email showing that the Secretary, Marco Rubio, approved anything, right? You know, judges get a little squeamish when they're in courts and they're supposed to be the trier of fact, and there's no facts presented through evidence. The U.S. Attorney Gardner responds, I think it's important that everyone understands the context here. Since January 20th, we have received approximately 80 lawsuits. It's 95 now. And our staff at the Justice Department's Federal Programs Branch has been cut in half. Well, stop right there. Whose bright idea was that? Who's bright? Donald Trump had no problem spending $30 million a month on his personal lawyers when he was being prosecuted all around the country and grifting and getting donations to pay them. What about the Department of Justice? So this is the moment when this U.S. attorney decided that they were going to cry on the shoulder of the judge. I've been a federal litigator for 35 years. I can tell you that there is no time that is appropriate to cry on the shoulder of a judge. I've met judges that I've argued in front of judges that are supremely engaged, supremely competent, supremely annoyed, supremely prepared, sometimes ill-prepared, but I've never met any that I could characterize as comforting. Let me just sometimes I like the results, but not the demeanor. And I know some of these federal judges, just to be fair. I knew them as lawyers. I knew them when they were state court judges, became federal judges. I've gone out to lunch with them. Doesn't help. So I don't think this was the time for this person to complain about funding and the fact that they haven't gotten a day off. But this lawyer continues. It's been cut in half. We have about half the number of staff that we had in November being the Biden administration period. And we're working on these expedited schedules, ... Judge jumps in. Morocco could have provided more in his declaration. It wouldn't have taken extra work on your part to seek more documentation. In other words, you're a lawyer, ask for the documents. If it really was a decision by USAD, there should be a piece of paper or an electronic message from Secretary Rubio saying, I'm approving it. Morocco said he had the authority. Morocco would have had access to something that was signed. Why don't we have that? I'm not trying to be obsequious. We're doing the best we can, gurgle's my part, to get as much information as possible. The judge, you're saying that the Justice Department isn't taking this case seriously? Now every hair on the, I'm not standing behind the judge, but I will tell you that every hair on the back of the judge's neck is now standing up. Okay? And he's growing a few more gray hairs talking to this lawyer. You're trying to tell me that the Justice Department isn't taking this case seriously? They're not staffing it sufficiently? Lawyer, drowning. It's the opposite. I haven't had a day off since January 20th. The mock sobbing is mine. We're working day and night. Judge, I understand that. They're cutting people across the government. If you're saying you don't have enough people, maybe that's part of the problem. I mean, if USAID can't respond to lawsuits, maybe they need more people. I don't know. I wasn't in the room. I'm reading it from a dry report. I don't know if the judge chuckled at all during that, but it was a sad state of affairs. What has happened to that proud institution called the Department of Justice under Donald Trump as his own attorney general with a meat puppet by his side named Pam Bondi? They're busy writing letters about firing people and hiring, ultimate fighters to train the FBI. And let's get to the bottom of the Jeffrey Epstein files and having these ridiculous performative kabuki theater in the Oval Office handing out binders, but they can't staff the 95 cases properly. Your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So you get better sleep every night. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Sleeping on bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Upgrade your sleep this year. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code LegalAF at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/legalaf to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. I've been up against the federal government in my career probably 30 times, maybe 40 times in some capacity, including trials and jury trials and that civil investigations, criminal investigations and the like. What we always tell our clients is that we are outnumbered, we are outmatched, and we are outgunned at the very start. That there is usually an asymmetry between what a private lawyer can do in terms of resources and what the government, who represents the United States of America, what they have at their disposal. We always used to tell them it's unlimited. It's a mindless group of prosecutors and FBI, and they'll just put more people on it and more people on it, and we're 3 people. It looks like the days of plaintiffs' lawyers, or defendants in this case, the plaintiffs' lawyers, the days of them being outmatched by the Department of Justice are over. We now have parity. This is like the NFL. This is like why it's 8. Every team is usually 8-8, something like that. Because now the Department of Justice looks like it's 5 people running around trying to defend 95 cases in a dozen different courthouses around America. Let me just tell you, if this is what is bursting out into the open, almost a lawyer bursting into tears about not having a day off since January 20th, right? I think that person glitched. I think that person is going to be taken out in the back and reprogrammed by the Trump MAGA, but that's for another day. Let me give you an overview of the cases before I leave this hot take. There are 95 cases as of this recording. Let me tell you how it breaks down in general, in big numbers, big components, big puzzle pieces. 16 of the cases deal with immigration or citizenship. So far, of those 16 cases, all coming out of these executive orders, there's been 5 preliminary injunctions and 2 temporary restraining orders. Okay, again, let's keep the timeline on the x-axis. Okay, this is 35 days in. 16 cases, immigration and citizenship. There are 26 cases about federal workers and DOJ, and you can translate that to Elon Musk cases. 26 cases resulting in 2 temporary restraining orders and 2 preliminary injunctions and 1 order on discovery. To attack the independence of boards that are bipartisan or boards that Donald Trump has done, there are 5 cases and 1 temporary restraining order. About the U.S. aid coming out of the State Department to help humanitarian relief efforts around the world, there are 4 cases and 1 temporary restraining order. About the Consumer Finance Protection Board, another thing that the MAGA wants to destroy, there are 2 cases. About the Inspectors General's filing, there are 2 cases. About cutting off domestic funding and impounding those funds, there are 4 cases and 2 temporary restraining orders. A little covered area about the National Institute of Health and its reimbursement policy, which goes to research, like to find cures for cancer. There are 3 cases and a temporary restraining order about that. Just to show you the disproportionate focus, warped focus of this administration, there are 9 cases involving transgender issues, transgender athletes, passport policies, gender-affirming care, transgender people in the military, and transgender prisoners. 9 cases just about their attack on the transgender community. There's 1 temporary restraining order and 1 preliminary injunction related to that. About diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, right? Getting rid of them all, just letting white people get all the jobs, I guess is another way to put it. There are 7 cases about the FBI and the Department of Justice, mass firings, which goes to the issue I started the hot take with. There are 2 cases about the environment. There are 2 cases. So if you add all those big pictures up, you're coming up with the 95 cases that are out there. The success rate so far in the more than 40 preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders is hovering above 90%. There's been a few losses here and there. There's some that I've done about the Supreme Court not on U.S. aid, wanting full briefing before a restraining order compelling $2 billion worth of payments to be made goes out. But by and large, if you told me in November the 5th or January the 20th that we'd file as a collective against the Trump administration rogue policies, depraved policies, American valueless policies, that we would file 95 cases and be winning 90% of them at this juncture, sign me up. It's higher than the percentage in the first administration. First administration, the winning rate was about 80%, between 80 and 90%. Now it's over 90%. Why? Because Donald Trump has gone mad. Because he's gone around the bend. Because he's demented. He's depraved. I mean, there's no other way to watch him acting out foreign policy, domestic policy, funding policy, executive orders, what floats his boat and lights up his face every day without thinking, yeah, he's not there. There's no executive functioning in the executive branch, if you know what I mean. So we would take it in a heartbeat. I'll continue to follow it. But news, meet me at camera one, as somebody once said to the Department of Justice, trying to cry on the shoulder of federal courts because your administration's executive orders are illegal and unconstitutional. And by signing 50 or 60 executive orders, it's resulted in 100 lawsuits in 35 days is not the problem of the federal courts. And they don't want to hear that you aren't prepared because of your funding or because of your personnel cuts and somebody trying to hollow out your personnel, Musk. They don't want to hear about it. And the good news for the plaintiffs, the attorneys general, the public interest groups, the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, the attorneys general, the good news for them is that they're no longer outmatched by the resources, power, and sheer volume of personnel at the Department of Justice because they're not funding it or budgeting it or assigning personnel to it at the appropriate amounts. Take advantage of it now. I'll continue to follow all of this. That was a big picture. Michael Popok here, Legal AF. I do my work in two places. Here on the MeidasTouch Network since the beginning, for the last 5 years at the intersection of law and politics. Also, we have a channel together called Legal AF MTN for MeidasTouch Network. There, 5, 6, 7, 8 videos a day, catching you up in the intersection of law and politics at a granular level, but we make it informative and entertaining. I have court accountability action with me there. Shan Wu, Dina Dahl, Karen Freeman-Ignifilo, myself. Join us at the Legal AF YouTube channel. Then Legal AF, the podcast. We have Legal AF in all different sizes for you. In all different types. Legal AF, the podcast. Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Come on, you can do this with me. On this YouTube channel, MeidasTouch, and then on audio podcast platforms of your choice. We're regularly in the top 10 worldwide as a podcast. Amazing. On the number one, MeidasTouch Network. And then I got a new show called Popok Live. Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. It's me, right here. Intersection of law and politics. I'm unhinged occasionally, unfiltered, untethered, uncensored, all on the MeidasTouch Network. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.